Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand, and we are now streaming on Instagram tonight. I can assure you, because I can tell that. We are on Instagram. We are Divided We Stand 2024 on Instagram. So we hope that some people will join us there too. Anyway, my name is Brian Weinstein. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is Divided We Stand, December the 23rd, Saturday night. It is I guess it's not the last Saturday night before the New Year's, but nonetheless, it's important. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, we are Divided We Stand on YouTube. We ask that you subscribe. Also, we are on Facebook. We are called the Divided We Stand Facebook page. There, we ask that you become a member. It is a private group, so you do have to answer a few questions and agree to a few things before you join us. But after that, you're good to go. We ask that you subscribe and share and commiserate with us. Well, what would our show be without my co-host, David Price? Dave, you are on Instagram live tonight. How are you? Well, what would our show be without my co-host, David Price? Dave, can you hear an echo, Dave? Instagram live tonight. How are you? Well, what would our show be without my co-host, David Price? Dave, can you hear an echo, Dave? Instagram live tonight. How are you? Well, what would our show be without my co-host, David Price? Okay. I guess it's too much echo on Instagram.
So we're not on Instagram now?
Not at this moment. I could switch this back. I have to figure out a way to cut the volume off of that. You know, we were on, but we'll figure it out. You know what?
No, you won't. But that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Dave, how are you?
You are. Well, I just want to say, I don't want to disparage you, but I want to make an analogy here. I think you are to live web broadcasting what Donald Trump is to the presidency. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, that must mean that about 53% of America really dig my stuff. No, 48% of America, I suppose.
Another week, Brian, another week. Of course, I want to start with something different this time.
Sure.
And I'm really talking more to the people, the thousands that are listening now. It just struck me, I don't know why today it did. I haven't seen anything on the alleged war on Christmas this year. Have you?
Well, who alleged the war on Christmas? Is that Trump?
Well, no, it's been a right-wing thing for, past few years. I don't know. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, it was a big thing. Of course, completely crazy. One of the things, hey, Anthony, one of the things, and Joey, and Bella, one of the things that I find fascinating as we study the Republican Party, because you might as well say now, you can still be a Republican and not support Trump. There are a few out there, but for the most part, Trump is now the standard bearer for the party. And of course, he was one of those, but words are important. And like, I can say happy holidays, and I'm not disparaging Christmas. It's more than one. Yeah, I'm wishing you happy Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, if it falls during that time. And there's no war on Christmas. But I just think, I'm just wondering, I don't know if maybe I'm missing it, but I just didn't see it this year, didn't hear it this year. And so I wonder if the war's over, and if we did, who won? Well, what a ridiculous. It's just
well, everything they're doing is ridiculous. It just seems, it's funny. It's they're trying to disparage everything, and you've seen the economic numbers have been looking really, really good, despite the fact that the rest of the world seems to be in a recession. It's almost as if not only did they report it as being bad, they want it to be bad.
Well, certainly if it's good, they're not going to win. Right. That's part of it. Now, I do have a question for anybody out there. I have questions tonight. I'm at a loss quite to understand when I look at the economic numbers, they are pretty damn good. Okay. And yet Biden scores abysmally on the polls when it comes to economics, and is the country in better shape? I mean, we know the age issue, but how do you? I mean, why do you think that is, and what can he do about
it? I mean, look, if you were just going to look at that and you say, okay, here are the numbers, they're great. People don't think so. Well, I guess the bottom line is there are a lot of stupid people out there. I mean, we can look at it a lot of different ways.
No,
we can look at the propaganda. We can look at how maybe it's confusing to people how these numbers are used. But the bottom line is, if you can understand it and I can understand it, and we're basically economic novice, we can still understand the idea of, well, it's, even looking at gasoline prices at $3 a gallon. See, that's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. But apparently, that's not good enough. And this is a problem, because all we have to do is have one little faltering in the economy between now and the election, and then it really gets bad. Because then they really will have something to say.
But if it continues to get better, and enough Americans don't see that, then we still have a problem. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't follow everything that Joe Biden does or Joe Biden says. But I wonder, if it is something that that he doesn't articulate it well. I don't know, or people just aren't listening, or.
There's no doubt about it. The country's polarized. It's balkanized almost. So for some people, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
Whether the economy is good or bad, they hate Biden. The big issue right now is kind of what we were talking about last week, and the big issue is immigration. And even Biden is making his move. Now the question is, if Biden gets a deal on immigration, is that potentially, you might think that's good for the Republicans because that's what they want, but it's actually bad for them. You would think, I think what they're going to do is they're going to not come up with a deal. They'll just keep going farther and farther to the right because they don't want to make Biden look good at all.
No, and you're absolutely right. When you think about it, I always have to smile when somebody says, "Well, what would the forefathers and the founding fathers and of the countries?" I think they'd be disgusted. But you have to remember, some they didn't trust the House of Representatives. They really put their faith in the Senate and the president. And I don't think. Well, I mean, there's so much you couldn't conceive of. I always find it fascinating to me how people want to hold on to the Constitution, but you don't hold on to medical practices from the time the Constitution originated. You don't hold on to anything. What is there? And we're gonna have to find a way. I didn't realize this. I was just reading something the other day that America has, with the exception of dictatorship, America has one of the hardest constitutions to change. It's been updated. Almost all the European countries update it regularly. Get some amendments in or rework it, and we don't. So, by de facto, by default, we have this two-party system, and that's all we have. There's no. Could you conceive of a way? I can't conceive of a way a third-party candidate could win.
Well, there could be a third-party candidate who would change the outcome of the election.
Perhaps. But I'm not saying that. I'm talking about to win. And that's something that is troubling to me. Anyone has a right to run, who's eligible to run. Certainly, Donald Trump proves that, and we don't even know if he's eligible yet. But the idea of it is, to me, any vote cast for Cornel West, even if you think he's great, even if you think he's the answer, any vote cast for Jill Stein in the Green Party is a vote for Donald Trump. In essence, because...
and that's what Germany didn't understand in the early 1930s.
You're exactly right.
At the time, they couldn't envision it, but
no,
that's what happened.
And of course, I can understand if I were a member of the Green Party, or as I say, I thought Mr. West had the answers. Um, I could understand the frustration of saying, well, you can't vote for him. But the reality of it is, as it looks today, and will change if and when that's necessary, the election is going to be between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, a replay of the last election, with one difference. This time, Trump kind of gets to run as the outsider, and Biden runs as the insider.
Right.
And I think what we're finding is it is very difficult to be the president and not offend some people. The thing that concerns me most in the international front tonight is still this idea of course, the situation between Israel, Palestine, Gaza, because that also is dividing our country.
Right.
But it's really the division looks to be
The Democratic Party.
right. Is where it's really splitting. I mean, Republicans seem to be pretty much going along with
Status
the
quo.
status quo and Israeli. And I don't know enough about it to really comment that intelligently on it. I think my simplistic view is war is bad. What is it? War is bad for living things. I mean, that's just the way it is. Bad for non-living things too. If your house explodes. So, and no war is. I don't think there's ever been a war that didn't have some involvement on all sides. Even if you declare it, I mean, but certainly there's a time. But Israel, apparently, from what I understand, or the factor there, they don't want to. They certainly don't want to lose their country, right?
Right.
And then the Palestinians with Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, no question about that. But what is it, 20,000 now, something like that?
Well, of course, that's what Hamas, the Palestinian Health Organization, which is controlled by the Hamas government. So they were saying 20. It's probably, and that includes Hamas terrorists who've been killed. So
right.
The number is going to be high. But first of all, I don't know that it's 20,000, and it's certainly, who knows, it could be 10 to 15,000 terrorists killed. We don't know those numbers yet. In fact, that's the problem right now with the Red Cross, because the Red Cross can't even get in with the Israeli
right.
and American hostages because they won't allow them in. And the Red Cross is saying, well, we know we're supposed to go in, but they won't let us in. So you can't even know who's dead and who's not dead. I think, like you said, it's funny. Trump, I found it very interesting, Dave. I don't know if you've been following Trump with this, because he hasn't said anything except one thing. Well, he said two things. When he was upset at Israel, of all people, of all countries, because he's a defender of Israel. At least that's what he said. But he was mad at Netanyahu because Netanyahu was embracing Biden. That's the first reason he was mad at him. Okay, he didn't want him to do that. Then the second thing was this was his comment. This is the only comment he's made on the situation. He says, "I think right now we're just going to have to see how this thing plays out." I mean, what a cop-out! Because again, you would think he would defend Israel. That's not a defense of Israel. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the $2 billion from Saudi Arabia to the Kushner family, they had the Abraham Accords. It's just, to me, the fact that he said that was almost like saying Putin, he's not such a bad guy kind of thing. He just avoided it, and that's why I don't think that, like, the people on the right who are supporting Israel think that Trump supports Israel. But I don't really know that that's true. I think he uses Israel. You know what I mean?
Well, that I think is true. I mean, we've said it before. It bears repeating, just so we don't forget. Donald Trump has no moral core. None.
Right.
No core, no code. He judges everything, whether it doesn't matter.
But doesn't he use, Dave? Doesn't he use like that mafia code of speech where it can be nuance? There's a certain, I don't want to say genius, but there's a madcap way of the way he handles answering things where you can't legally get in trouble for it. You can't pin him down on something.
Well, because no one has. Again, we have to keep in mind that while the process is slower than those of us who oppose Trump would like, he is involved for the first time in his life in criminal proceedings, felonies, and that's not the same as, all the court cases before have been civil in nature, and that's a whole different ball game. First of all, this week, they've been talking about he uses poisoning the blood, and he said that on two occasions that we know of, and of course that is Hitlerian. That is something that Adolf Hitler said, believed, did, used it effectively. And did you see this week that Trump came and says, "I've never read Mein Kampf"?
Yes, right. That's another thing. He said he never read it.
He hasn't read it.
I might believe that he has not read all of it. They said that Ivana said that he had like certain portions of it near his bedside or something like that.
The thing is, we know he's not a reader.
She's at the golf course right now.
And you've got because even the reports were he didn't want the whole briefings in the morning. He wanted them on one page. That was it. They say he has about a 5 to 7 minute max.
Yeah, he wanted like the front page of the USA Today version, basically.
And or less even. Of course, I just sit here, I use that word a lot, amazed. He is. I mean, if you were to sit down, and somebody's done it somewhere, the stupid things he said and done, the illegal things he said and done, the promises of an authoritarian fascist government that he says he promotes and wants, and yet his numbers stay or grow. And maybe Americans don't want democracy.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe these people are that. I mean, you and I would think that you can't be that intelligent if you want some type of, autocracy or some totalitarian type of government. So maybe these people are. Maybe this is what has happened to this country, that we are that stupid. The way that they got their fingers in education, we know what education is like at the schools in South Jersey and all, but we don't really know how that played out in Texas and Alabama.
Well, we do.
I mean, your son would know, at least at the collegiate level, what's going on there.
Well, yeah, and the thing with colleges, for the most part, all right, professors get tenure, and they're pretty much untouchable, right? But now we're starting to see, again, back to the situation in Palestine. That's causing rifts on campuses between groups of pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, it's getting vicious, actually. It's getting outright dangerous.
It's already cost, and I'm not saying deservedly or not, it's already cost University of Pennsylvania. They dismissed their president. The president of Harvard, we talked about, Miss Gay, she's in trouble. Of course, what's interesting, they've picked up some really, plagiarism charges that apparently are true. But that makes you wonder, but it's still in its focus. And the Republicans would milk that because, again, for the most part, there's probably more people come out of college liberal than come out conservative. Right. Especially if you exempt if you exempt liberty and the completely religious colleges. But the thing that I think I want to focus on tonight, or at least for a while now, next, is the organization that I think is going to play a tremendous role in the 2024 election, and that would be our 9-member Supreme Court. We've talked about the Supreme Court. We know its makeup. It is basically 6 conservatives, 3 of whom were appointed by Donald Trump, and 3 liberals. We do see, and I do think, as I said, you and I differ a little bit on this. I put a little bit more, not faith, but just a little bit more Robert's ego, that he may side with the liberals more than any other of the conservative judges. And I think that's true because
maybe because he's he is not in the pocket of Trump, but he is a conservative. But he
No
doesn't want to
question.
be the type of guy who's just like Clarence Thomas, and he's just going to go
Well,
flat out to whatever is going to help the Republicans.
and I think my feeling of that is he knows it's the Roberts court. He doesn't want to be on the wrong side of history necessarily.
Yeah, even if it
But
means that he has to vote with the liberals.
right, and he also knows and can say, "Well, I did it. It was only going to be 5-4. No harm, no foul."
That's true too. He could do that
I mean, he'll just say, so
and
he
still
can
look
play
good,
them.
try to come out looking good.
Right.
Is that he knew it was too far to the right.
All right. So let's look. I think there are three areas where a court decision will probably play a huge role in the election. First, I guess you saw this week, they turned down Special Counsel Jack Smith's request for a fast track review of Trump's claim that a former president has absolute immunity
Correct.
for anything he did or she did, hopefully someday in office. Now, that in itself is scary. Not they're turning it down. That's fine. I could understand why you might. That was unanimous, no dissent on doing that, because it's not there yet. It's sort of like, my tooth kind of hurts, and I know it's turning into, I'm going to have to dentist visit, but I can put it off for a little while. I mean, they know it's coming. There's no question about that. And they could only punt it for a little while because I think it's January.
Right. So this one they will hurry up on.
Well, because they cannot not. Now, people have to remember that the court usually doesn't issue its edicts until month of June. It deliberates everything. Whether they would move that up, Smith's contention is that it would be a different ball game, and it would be, were Trump to be president at the time, these court cases are going on. So I think he was wise to bring it up. I think the Supreme Court did what I kind of thought they would do, which is punt for now. But the clock is ticking. So that'll be the first inkling we get of how the Supreme Court will go. But there's another caveat in all of these. You have Clarence Thomas. Now, of the three that we're going to talk about, we've talked about the first one, they all involve or in some way stem from the January 6th insurrection. And we know that Ginny Thomas took an active role in supporting that. And after. So Thomas, if he had any kind of ethics at all, would recuse himself from any decision definitely involving January 6th.
It won't happen. It won't happen. You know that. Because again, he's not there as a court justice. He's there as an employee of the conservative wing of the United States.
Well, actually, there was a story.
I mean, he's been paid in other ways. The majority of his salary is
but what's
outside
interesting?
Of his salary.
They came out with this story, and again, you can't believe every story. We say that, but this had a ring of truth to it. Years ago, he was going to resign unless they raised the salary.
Right.
That kind of says it all, right? I mean, and you do. I mean, I'm sure Supreme Court justices lose money. They would be hired some, law firm if they were, but that's not why, you should take the job. That's like saying, I don't want to be president because you don't make any money. There's other.
Right. He can leverage his position.
Yeah. But, again, you've got the two old school, and by old school, there's nothing meritorious about it, Thomas and Alito, and then you've got the three Trump appointees. And then you've got on top of that Roberts, who, as you say, is a conservative. But so the first thing we have to keep, our eye on and see what happens is this request by Smith has been turned down, but it'll come up. At the moment, it'll come up at some point
through the appellate courts, I assume.
Some way it will come up because Smith or Trump will appeal the decision. If he gets immunity, Smith will appeal. If he doesn't get granted immunity, Trump will appeal. So there's no question it will come up. This one is the one that's kind of is confusing. So try to bring it into some play. Okay, the court has agreed to hear this a case asking if the January 6th rioters can be charged with obstructing an official proceedings. That's what there is
And
a
that
law.
seems reasonable, right?
Well, what if they say they can't? You've already got people in jail for that.
Right, they're convicted.
But they could be convicted wrongly if they rule that January 6th wasn't. Anybody attempting.
Well, that's when you know that it's a kangaroo court. I mean, essentially.
Well, I'm just saying. I know, but that doesn't help us because
no, it doesn't. But at least it lays it right out there. There's no way to go with the courts. You have to do it another way.
Well, once you get to that point, let's look at that, Brian. That deserves some look. Okay, what do you do? Let's assume, just for a moment, that in this next election, Democrats lose the House.
Right.
There's only five. There's only 5 votes,
Right.
in there. They lose the Senate. They lose the presidency.
All which are possible.
And they already have the Supreme Court.
Essentially, then you have the Russian system, because then you have control of the military. You have control. Well, actually, the one thing they don't have control would be all the communications. You'd have to get rid of like MSNBC and CNN and all of the other networks. That would be the one thing that would be left. The fake news, right?
Trump labels fake news.
But that's the thing. I think that would be the final straw, that they could get control if they stopped the media. So I would be really worried if I were, Rachel Maddow, Jake Tapper, all those people, decent enough people.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, the problem is that people who believe Donald Trump believe that the media sucks, except for Truth Social, Fox, Newsmax, a couple other places. But anyway, so there's the first was the excuse me, the immunity issue for Trump. Second, we've got, is this charge central? Let's see what we got up here.
Well, from Global Solidarity, she said the Supreme Court justices are all political. I guess you could rationalize that that's true to a certain extent. But
I think what happens is, and again, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and people can certainly disagree with this. This is just my 71 years on the planet. First of all, yes, every judge who's ever been appointed or elected is a political animal. That's true. Okay? However, there seem to be some times that people would rise above that. One who did was Sandra Day O'Connor. There's no Sandra Day O'Connor on this court. You look at some of the appointees during Nixon's time.
Right.
They certainly turned on Nixon. I think the point is that whether we can say they always were, we can say that it was a political atmosphere surrounding them. But I think now it's even more pronounced, and that that's wonderful. I mean, I love looking at history when it can teach us something, but right now it really can't teach us anything because the Supreme Court is what it is, right?
Right.
You would need new people, new judges, and then the other one, of course, is the one we talked about last week. They've been asked to review a ruling of the Colorado Supreme Court that now stands that Trump cannot be on the ballot because he was involved in January 6th,
right,
which was a riot where the rioters were attempting to obstruct official proceedings. How they rule on those three things, really?
Right, because you think if you rule one way on one thing, that you should rule the same on the other, and it won't happen.
Well, we don't know.
It's a political beast, but I think that's where we have to ask the question, Dave: how do we circumvent that? Is there a way to circumvent when they have control of the Supreme Court and the Congress?
Right. Take Washington D.C. by force. I don't know, Brian. There is no way legally. I mean, when you say Truman had on his desk, allegedly the buck stops here. Well, the legal buck stops at the Supreme Court. The only people who can change the Supreme Court are the Supreme Court justices.
And again, this is where it's old hat here, but this is where I blame Obama for what happened with Merrick Garland.
I would love, and he wouldn't, because politicians don't do that. I would love to sit down with him and just say, Brock, what was your thought process on that? I just don't understand. I mean, I would have either politically, I would have been furious because I could see where it was going, but personally, I would be furious, right? I mean, if there was ever a time to be furious, Mitch McConnell and the GOP party and the Republican majority in the Senate, they're stopping you from doing what you need to do.
Maybe he just thought that Hillary was going to be able to win.
Well, I think there was a lot of that. I think there was a lot of that because again, it's been rumored and probably somewhat true. Donald Trump didn't even think he was going to win. There's pretty solid evidence that he did not prepare an acceptance speech. Now, he might not have prepared it anyway, because he likes extemporaneous speaking, but he certainly didn't have it. So, yeah, I mean, certainly I was guilty of that. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I saw no way that Donald Trump could become president of the United States in 2016. And I underestimated two things. Hillary, the amount of disdain, I guess, directed at Hillary, either for Hillary Clinton or the fact that she was a woman or the fact that she was Bill Clinton's wife or all of the above. Mm-hmm. That was there. And I certainly underestimated. And I was having this discussion with three very interesting people, all young, really, really bright Black residents here at the apartment complex. They had a Christmas party, and we just ended up sitting and we started talking. I mean, I underestimated white America's, what could you say, really hatred for a Black president.
Absolutely, that just set them on fire.
Which again, objectively, I mean, how can you even compare Barack Obama and Donald Trump from a moral standpoint? I mean, you can't. And I believe that Donald Trump is so amoral, immoral, lacking in morals, whatever, that he has no right being president. So, I mean, it's quite a distinction between the two of those. All right. Now, we were talking before a little bit, too. And this is one thing that's changed. The last time that the Supreme Court had a real hand in the election, of course, would have been the Gore-Bush, right? When they really determined that George W. Bush won. We still don't know that. We'll never know that. There's
we'll never know that.
Indications that had it continued in Florida, the count, that it probably would have indicated Gore was the winner. We just don't know. But they pretty much said, nope, this is it. This is where we're going to go. Well, at that time, according to the Washington Post, the approval rating for the Supreme Court was 62% after that. So still 62% of Americans, according to that poll, thought the Supreme Court was doing a good job. Now, almost the same number, 58%, believe that the Supreme Court is not doing a good job. So we have, it's hard to, again, even look at the two situations because of the change in the time, because of the change in America. America was obviously not as divided during the Gore-Bush.
At least not openly divided like it is now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there is a case to be made that it was always there, deep-rooted.
Yeah.
But it's like the Supreme Court decision. We can't really know exactly, but it's there now, and it's out in the open. It might even get worse in terms of how they express.
I don't think there's any question about that. because
talking
America
the
is more.
bigotry, not just these.
No, what I'm saying, I mean, it doesn't matter who. I mean, let's assume for a moment, and we only have it in Colorado so far, but it's a real question, who determines that Trump did something illegal on January 6th? He hasn't been charged with anything yet. Hasn't been found guilty of anything yet, right?
And that's what Bill Barr keeps pushing. Like, he's becoming an asshole again. He's reverting back to his old self.
Well, I mean, I think that's true, though. I mean, the other thing is we have to remember, as painful as this is, that whatever happens to Donald Trump could happen to a Democrat too. I think that's really where we are now. Look, I'm going to make a prediction here that unless things change, and I don't see them changing, every president from here on out for the foreseeable future will face impeachment. Everyone. Because that's the game we're playing now. I mean, maybe the Democrats won't come after, but certainly Republicans will. And that's the. Should I say? I mean, there is absolutely no evidence of Joe Biden benefiting from anything his son Hunter Biden did. And there's just nothing there. And yet, coming back, we're going to do the impeachment. Okay. So, again, not everybody follows politics. I don't think everybody should. Everybody should. I think everybody should. They don't. And then sometimes it's worse because they hear impeachment. Well, remember, there's two stages to impeachment. The House finds you guilty and the Senate sentences. Well, that didn't happen. The Senate said no, because you needed the extra number of votes to do that. But I will be looking, and we all should be looking at the Supreme Court. But the other thing you have to remember, too, with the Supreme Court is they're really not influenced by anything. They're appointed for life. Unless you get criminal charges against them, there's nothing you can do to get them off there. And even that, hasn't really proven to be effective, because if that were the case, I think they would have gone after Thomas and Alito more than they have. So there's no reason, like you could sway a politician sometimes with a protest, enough protesting, threaten their pocketbook, a major funder pulls out. Supreme Court, there's none of that. So there are 9 people, in essence, will probably have the most impact on the presidential election of any single group in the country. Can you see any other group that would have,
No, I think you're absolutely right. But the issue now for us is we know who's on that court, and we know the way it stands right now. And that doesn't look good, Dave. That looks really bad.
No, of course it does.
Especially when you look at members such as Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. It seems to me they're in the pocket.
And that's another thing too. We use those terms, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm just saying we don't know they're in the pocket, right? I mean, there's no proof that we don't have it on tape where Donald.
Well, we'll wait and see if the duck quacks, but we'll
I understand that, but the problem is, assume they're not in the pocket. Let's just assume for a moment and they rule for Trump, and they believe it really. It still tarnishes their ruling. That's the problem, because you mentioned the Merrick Garland not being appointed, not being.
And is it true? I think isn't Garland a Republican? I think
I heard that, but I don't know. I'm going to leave that. I think, but no, I don't think so.
Google that out there, because I'm too.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking he might have been one who switched parties.
It's possible.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just.
Or he may that may have just become something that was picked up because
somebody out there check on that.
He's certainly a cautious Democrat.
Right.
Now, my favorite story, and this is how fucking use my favorite adjective, or one of my favorite adjectives. Fucking childish and absurd. The Trump campaign era running presidency is. And, it would be hilarious if it weren't so dangerous. All right. And, Brian, we've got a new thing. We've had Watergate, right?
We have.
We've had Iran Gate. We've had this gate. We've had this gate. Well, this week we got a new gate. Stink Gate.
All right. Tell us about Stinkgate.
Currently on X, formerly known as Twitter, the artist formerly known as Twitter, it's the most trending topic. Okay. So that would lead one to believe that it would be the most important topic if it were political and trending, correct?
Correct.
I mean, but obviously that's not going to be the case. So here's what happens. Adam Kinzinger, who was a congressman, anti-Trump congressman, earlier this week posted that, excuse me, that Trump smells. Here's what he said in a post. I'm generally surprised few people close to Trump haven't talked about the odor. It's truly something to behold. Wear a mask if you can. Now that's okay. So that's there. Now, of course, Donald Trump and his people can't take that line down. So they then, in turn, reply to Kinzinger's post and say that he, quote...
Get a shout out here, Dave, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that is actually true. I'll just address that for a moment, then I'll come back. Not that you could think. One of the great things prior to the pandemic here was Politics and Prose Bookstore, which is my favorite. I love the Strand in New York, but I would have to say Politics. And they would bring in all these speakers. It was great. And Dennis Lehane is one of my favorite trio of writers who were involved in The Wire with David Simon. So it was George Pelecanos from D.C., Richard Price from New York City, and Dennis from Boston. It was great because you could go early. Sometimes you could talk to them, and then you get to hear things. And but again, in this post-pandemic world, a lot of authors now are not going on book tours because they can do it what we're doing and reach a whole nation, right?
Right.
In one night, or you can do it any night and just not come home. So that was that I do miss, and the other thing that I miss are the luncheons, talks at all the think tanks. They don't do that much anymore either. I'm not going to talk about it tonight. Maybe someday I will. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I'm going to say Washington, D.C. is suffering more than any other large community in America from results of the pandemic. Still, there's a lot of things here. But anyway, so we get back to Mr. Trump and this smelly thing. So right away, Trump's people post back that Adam, quote, farted on live TV.
Who farted on live TV? Who Trump said? Adam did.
Yeah, Adam did. Kissinger did. And is an unemployed fraud. And then they added a few other things. Now, if that doesn't sound like fucking middle school.
Right. He farted.
Yeah, he farted. Actually, he farted. Good Lord, we're talking about a country.
Adam has stinky farts.
Yeah. But there's other support for this. So now it's rolling, right? So now we get about a person who worked on The Apprentice said, "Oh no, I wasn't surprised about this. Trump wore diapers on The Apprentice because he was constantly shitting himself. What? Right? So this guy comes along and he says, yeah, he said his bowels are uncontrollable. And it's from all the Adderall he takes. Wow. Which, here's the thing. As a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, uppers, Adderall, cocaine, can play havoc with your bowels. It really does. Okay,
So are you alluding to the possibility that he has stinky butt?
well, I'm not. I'm just saying what it was out there.
Okay.
In fact, this source, if you will, take it for what it's worth, claims that Donald Trump has been in diapers since the 1990s. In fact, he says that's the reason if you ever see him stand, he's probably shit his pants. I'm going, wait, stop. Just stop. All right. Just stop laughing. But of course it doesn't end there. Because if you remember the war...
I haven't heard this one, but that's interesting,
Yeah. The war that the right had with the comedian Kathy Griffin. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, Kathy Griffin.
And she's very outspoken.
With the head or something like that she had.
Yeah, it was a
Severed head or something.
She comes out and says, Adam's right. When she was on a show with Trump, I tried to ignore him, but he does smell really, really bad. She said it's
well, there's BO and there's feces. I mean, there's usually the difference.
Well, I'm just saying. It's I don't
I didn't know that we were going to get into scatological here, but there is a difference.
Yeah. Oh no,
that would be pretty
know.
bad if he's a pooper, Mr. PoopyPants. Then.
But then again, is that first of all? And then I had to laugh how some people justify. Is that even something we should be talking about? I think it's funny, but some people are trying to justify by saying it goes to his health issues.
Yeah.
And of course the Adderall charge has been around for a long time. That same guy from The Apprentice said he also does cocaine. And I'm not so sure. Like I said, I'm not so sure he does cocaine. I think his son, Don Jr. definitely does cocaine because he has coke eyes.
He looks weird. I'll say that much.
He has coke eyes, and his girlfriend there, the time she started screaming when she did her speech, I think she was on something. But so you've got Stinkgate is trending. Hashtag Trump stinks is trending. Hashtag Trump smells bad is trending. It will be interesting to see, is this a 1 week phenomena? Will it continue? Will somebody raise it in a debate? And who would that be? That would only be Joe Biden, because the only time we're going to see Trump debate is with Biden. Now, there's a question I have for you, Brian. We know that Trump will not debate any of the Republicans. We know that, any of the candidates. Do you think he wouldn't skip a debate with Biden, would he?
I think he wouldn't. I think that because Biden speaks so slowly, he'll just jump on top of him. And
I'm saying would not do the debate. I'm saying just wouldn't even show.
I think he would do the debate. I can't see why he wouldn't, especially if he's down in terms of the polls. Like if he's 1% or 2% down, I think he's going to do it. I don't know. You know better than I do, Dave.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know. Because again, as I said, I was so wrong. Professor PoopyPants.
Yeah, apparently there's a Tippy Tinkle trousers too. I wonder if he tinkles.
Oh no, Tinkle. Well, Tinkle could be from remember the report of the women of the night peeing on the bed in.
We have a Mr. Super PoopyPants, Captain Underpants, Tippy Tinkle trouser. I didn't realize they had all these.
Yeah, well, and notice.
I knew there was Mr. PoopyPants.
They're kid stuff. I mean, you outgrow that shit.
Well, apparently some of them haven't. I mean,
yeah. It's just when you stop and think about the tragedy of the Middle East, or the tragedies of the Middle East. When you think about the tragedies here in America, homeless, veterans not taken care of, opioid addiction, and the trending thing, is Donald Trump's stink. But I
Let's not forget, too, there's a war in Syria with even more death and carnage than.
yeah, anti-Gaia, yes, that is pretty much like I said. That's and sounding with meth. The other side of it is too, but more meth. It's a nice drug if you can take it now. Yeah,
And Trump seems a little bit old to be doing all that kind of shit, But
well, I don't. I mean, well, it doesn't mean the Adderall, I think, is a possibility. I do think that is a possibility. I don't think the cocaine. I don't think the meth. But I don't know. He doesn't sleep. We know that.
He can't even sit still. If you think back to that debate with Hillary Clinton.
Oh no!
He had to keep moving around and all. He can't sit still.
Well, limited attention span. He's just bad. He's just bad, and it's like so frustrating. I mean, I knew that because of his dealings in New Jersey. I mean, how the hell do you default and lose 3 casinos?
But when's his battery going to run out, though? That's my point.
Well, maybe that when the Adderall does. I don't know. Certainly he doesn't. He certainly doesn't have a good diet. We know that. And again, even there was an interesting story. I've mentioned it before and again. I would, if I were a reporter, I'd have to research it more. But I'm just talking tonight. We're talking about Donald Trump. It's been reported. His love is cheeseburgers, right? I mean, he eats a lot of cheeseburgers and fast food. And the reason is, allegedly or supposedly, again, is he feels that can't be poisoned. He doesn't, and we know that he's a germophobic. He despises, you don't see him shaking hands, and that's part of that. And that's one of the reasons why people discounted the Russian peace story. Because everybody's thinking golden showers, where no. I thought it's one of two things.
Or they say he's watching it.
Well, that's what the other report, when it was all kind of settled. Supposedly, it was 2 girls or 3 Russian prostitutes on a bed peeing, and the reason it was the same bed that Barack and Michelle Obama had. We'll never know that. I mean, that's not. But Smallgate. Now, the last thing that I have for tonight is maybe a little bit of hope, maybe a little bit of hope, and I think this election is also going to hinge a lot on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Supreme Court has basically said abortion's done, right? States can decide it, and the danger with states deciding it is, well, okay, what we just saw in Texas, right? The woman had to leave the state, and then there's possibilities. The Attorney General of Texas said that if a doctor were to perform that abortion in the state of Texas, they'd be charged with a felony and imprisoned. So right now, abortion seems to be an issue that will draw young people, draw liberals, draw Democrats, draw women to the polls. We saw it in Kentucky. The governor there, who was just elected, ran on a very public pro-abortion platform and attacked consistently his opponent for being opposed. The issue was upheld in Kansas, Michigan, California, and Vermont. Right?
Right.
Constitutional amendments saying that abortion is allowed in those states. Now, that's not really a surprise. Kansas is a surprise somewhat.
Right. But does that translate into a presidential vote?
Well, that's the thing. Now, up in November, already on the ballot, there will be an abortion question, a request for a constitutional amendment to put in the Constitution that abortion is legal in the state of Maryland and the state of New York. Okay. Now, the problem with looking at that is that they are both states that if Donald Trump were to win either one of those, he's president. There's no way. Maryland. Uh, but there's movement already, possibilities in these states, Brian. Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, Florida, Missouri, Arkansas, and South Dakota. Now, would that, you're right, is it translatable? If they come out to vote for the constitutional amendment to protect abortion, would that translate into a vote for Joe Biden? Well, it wouldn't translate for a vote to Donald Trump, I don't think. Although Trump has been very careful. He hasn't really said much about abortion.
And by the way, I'm trying to think. It's the Senate that does the certification, the presidency. Was it the Senate that had certified it? I mean, the vice president has to oversee it.
Right.
But I'm thinking, like, what if it's? I'm thinking it's not the Congress. I don't think. But I don't trust the Republicans even if Biden wins. I mean, so now they really won't certify the election.
Well,
I mean, I'm going way ahead here, Dave.
No,
I'm saying
no,
there's just
you're not.
so
No,
many
you're not.
impediments
Brian,
to the.
All that is real. I mean, nothing's off the table as long as Donald Trump is running.
It's just like his appeal process. Like, I'm going to appeal here, and then there's a roadblock everywhere. At some point, Biden's going to have to say, I declare martial law, and that's it.
And will Biden do that?
I see him as being, well, you know what? Maybe he would. Maybe he.
I mean, again, we don't. He certainly doesn't have the temperament. I mean, who would want to do that? Declare martial law.
If I knew that the Republicans were right, Trump would do that. But if I knew that they were going to take over tomorrow morning, unless I did something. I mean, I don't know what else to say, Dave. You said it yourself. Civil war is a possibility.
I don't rule it out at all. I don't. Again, let me be somewhat clear. I'm not saying a civil war patterned on the 1861 to 65 war, but it could be a number of things. It could be withdrawal. New York and California deciding we'll just withdraw from the Union,
right.
Or the whole West Coast. There's been talk for a long time of Washington, Oregon, and California,
which we'd be fine with, because what if the blue states all seceded? We still have 71% of the productivity of this country, and they would understand that. It's like I said today that that Russia understands force. Well, that's kind of like force when you know that 71% of your economy is being driven by democratic states.
And when we talk about, I mean, obviously for the most part, we think of violence in terms of organized violence more associated with the MAGA group than any other. Well, we know that that's true already in Colorado. The Supreme Court judges in Colorado who
they've been threatened with being beheaded.
The whole thing, and it's easy to say, hey, I wouldn't be. Well, when they start threatening your family, you see that certainly January 6th there were a number of.
Well, that happens around the world. There are places in the Middle East where they will, interrogate you with the chainsaw.
Oh yeah, and there's just here we are, the season of peace, right?
Right.
We don't have peace. We don't have peace. I don't see peace coming. I see 2024 as a horrendous year, no matter who wins the election, but certainly more so by leaps and bounds if it goes to the Republicans or Donald Trump.
Right.
So what I want to do now is wish everyone that's listening, or now or later, I hope, a fervent hope, there are words we just throw around, peace and this and that and the other, but I really do hope that you can find, you're not going to find peace in the world. You're not going to find peace in your country probably right now, but I hope you can find peace in your own life, and then try to wherever you can, make your community a better place. That,
Right.
you know, that's all at this time. You know, we can't all be in Eddie Murphy's new movie Candy Cane Lane. It doesn't always play like that.
Right.
But it is a time, and so you know, and I hope that personally for each and every one of you, this next few days, some good happens, and you feel good, and you can find the wherewithal to continue.
You're here. Well said, Dave. Well, Dave, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for showing up tonight. I guess next week is the 30th. I think we're okay.
I'm okay.
So we'll do it. We'll do it again. So yeah, and I'll try to figure out a way to limit the Instagram volume, and then we'll be okay there too, I guess. But we're not going to worry about that right now.
Yeah, and then we need to hopefully by next week we'll be able to know exactly how much Donald Trump stinks.
Yes, and
yeah, and Banksy's always come up with something good. Not only is he a great artist, that's pretty true. You know, it's kind of hilarious that some of the most violent people also claim to be Christian.
Right. Well, that's on that note.
Yeah, everybody.
I'm waiting for Santa Claus to come down the street here. All right. I hope he doesn't take my head off with the fire engine or whatever. No. All right, Dave. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to sign off for good here. Thank you, everybody. And please share. Thank you. See you, Dave.